Hi, my name is Sarah Blake LaRose. We have had 2 celebrity suicides this week in this country. I don't normally contribute to the social media flurry regarding celebrity suicides. This time, I think it's time for me to do this. The reason I don't normally do this is because I have some shame about suicide. The reason I have shame about it is that I have worked very hard to build myself a career that is beginning to be successful, and I don't want to mess it up by revealing my weaknesses. But if we are not people who can be real, people who can have both strengths and weaknesses, then our society has a problem with perfectionism, and that's part of the problem that contributes to suicide, because we have become a society that requires people to be perfect, and when people can't be perfect, then people don't want to live anymore. So it's time for me to tell the truth. The first time that I struggled with the temptation to hurt myself, I was not very old. I was in high school, and I'm going to stop here and reveal that I have been blind since infancy. I attended school with my sighted peers. I did very well academically, but in the cafeteria, I was not a social butterfly. In fact, I really didn't want to go to the cafeteria for lunch. I would have preferred to eat by myself. But everyone was required to eat in the cafeteria up until the end of 8th grade with our class. The problem was that oftentimes my classmates did not want me as a social contributor to the discussion in the lunchroom. Sometimes they would go so far as to ask, "Can I move you to another table?" in those words. It felt like I was a piece of furniture that other people could do as they pleased with. And my physical response to that was to start to cry, which would have made things worse. So in order to avoid that, I would push my tears back. But the problem is that when you push tears back, you start to look angry. So one day I was called into the assistant principal's office, and I was told that classmates had complained about me and told him that I was rude. Well, that made things worse. So as you can imagine, the cafeteria was not my favorite place, ever. There came a point when I expressed my emotions and I said, "I wish I was dead." And the person who was with me, who will remain nameless, said, "So do I." I decided to handle this by planning how to accomplish my death. Fortunately, I got tired and I took a nap. And when I woke up, I realized that I really didn't want to die. What I really wanted was for her to say, "You don't mean that. I love you." And I realized that she was just a kid and she couldn't know what I wanted. And I would either have to tell someone or I would have to just not do it. I wasn't brave enough to tell anyone, but I was brave enough to not do it. A few years later, the temptation resurfaced because once again, I didn't have any social partners in the conversation space. And here's the thing about temptation. It always comes back when the circumstances are the same. This is biblical, by the way. And if you're a person of faith, I hope you'll hang around, because at some point I will expand this, but not today. What I want to talk about is being a person of faith and struggling with depression. Because at that time I realized that being a person of faith, I couldn't exercise the option to hurt myself. Because being a person of faith meant that God had a purpose for my life. God gave me life, and God had a plan. Even if I didn't know what it is right this minute, I needed to trust. If you are a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim, your faith reaches all the way back to a man named Abraham. And God said to Abraham, I want you to trust me, and I'm going to ask you to go to a land that I'm going to show you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is right now. I'm not going to get a map out and show you on the map where it is. I want you to leave, and I want you to go, and when you get there, I will show you. If you look on a map of the Near East and you trace the journey that Abraham took, it was a very long journey. He could have gone the short way over the mountains, but he didn't. He went the long way around, and he trusted God to show him. When we go on an emotional journey with God, God doesn't say, okay, I want you to do this, and then this, and then this, and leave us on our own to do it. It's one step at a time. We trust God all the way. Sometimes God tells us that something will happen, or gives us an idea that something will happen, but it doesn't happen for many years. And sometimes it looks a lot different than what we think. When God promised Abraham a son, it didn't happen the way Abraham thought it would. And it didn't happen until Abraham was old. This is the foundation of our faith. And if we are people of faith, we need to recover that foundation, and we need to live in memory of that foundation. If we live the health and wealth gospel that says, oh, God's going to give me something new right now and make me prosperous right now, we are living a false gospel. Jesus never promised us anything like that. In fact, Jesus promised his followers that there would be pain. There would be persecution. People would drag them into court. Even their own families would drag them into court. And some of them would die. The one who loved him most, Peter, died, crucified upside down. That's what it means to follow Christ. And yet, amid all the pain, there is joy. If we don't know how to have joy in the middle of the pain, we have not matured in Christ. If we expect to be happy and rich and fully satisfied right now, we are not mature in Christ. And that's what it means to follow Christ, is to be mature in Christ every day, to be growing more and more mature in Christ, even if it's painful. That, my friends, is how I have overcome the temptation to hurt myself, and how I continue to overcome every day. I'll tell you this. I'm not able to take antidepressant medication because I have a condition called glaucoma. And when I take antidepressant medication, it causes the pressure in my eye to build, and it's extremely painful. And when you can't take antidepressant medication, The only thing left to you is to use therapy techniques. And I'm not saying a bad thing about that because they've been extremely useful. But when some of your depression is chemical, therapy techniques can only do so much. People say a lot of times when I'm out and about that, wow, you have a great outlook on life and you smile so much. They don't see me when I'm not out. I'm not always smiling. My husband can tell you this. Sometimes he says, I don't know what to do for you. He's a wonder husband. He does wonderful things for me. He makes sure I eat. He makes sure that I remember the things that are true, even when I don't like them. And he makes sure that I never, ever make life-changing decisions when I'm in the middle of negative emotions. And that, my friends, is how you stay alive every day. It's how you live within God's covenant. Because God started the covenant by giving me life. He renewed the covenant by giving me grace. And the covenant will be complete when I am complete at the day of Christ. My end of the covenant is to do all that I do for the glory of God. And to trust God with the responsibility of my life. I hope that this speaks to you. And my prayer for you is that you will experience the depth and height of God's love, even in your days of pain. Shalom.